This is our first video on our immigration unit. It's also my first video altogether, so deal with it if it sucks for now. We're going to deal with the push and pull factors that pushed people out of their countries and led them to come to the United States. So we're going to take a step back before the Great Depression, before World War II, before the Red Sox traded Babe Ruth and started an 86-year run without winning a World Series. Nice. And we're going to start with the period from 1880 to 1920. Now, people have been coming to this country for hundreds of years, whether they wanted to or not. Most came from northern and western European countries like Germany, England, and Ireland. And until 1880, fewer than 200,000 immigrants would come per year. Some periods swelling up a little more than that. During the Irish potato famine, for instance, it swelled up to 2 million people per year. It led starving Irish immigrants coming here to bring their families to a place where there was so much land that they were literally giving it away. For the most part, before 1880, the immigrants who typically came through were English-speaking, and if they weren't, they were white and Protestant enough to fit in with regular society. It is worth noting, though, that it wasn't just people from Northern and Western Europe coming to the United States before 1880. There were many, many people coming in from Asia, for instance, particularly China. The Chinese were one of the major groups that helped build the railroad across the United States. And though these people were helpful to our society, the people in America could notice that they were different. They didn't speak the same language. They had different skin color. They looked different. They didn't practice the same religion. Therefore, they were weird. And because of that, they were discriminated against. Around 1880, the government started to realize we don't want more Asians coming in, and they started passing acts that prohibited Asian people from coming to the United States legally. So what changed? Around 1880, there was a drastic switch. Suddenly, immigrants began flooding in from southern European nations like Italy and Greece, as well as Eastern European countries like Poland and Russia and Slovakia and Yugoslavia and all these various countries. These, quote, new immigrants, as they were known, were pouring into New York and other coastal cities in greater numbers than ever. Why were these people leaving their countries and coming to the United States? To answer that question, we have to take a swim back across the Atlantic to the old country. Before we understand why they chose to come to America, we need to understand what forced them to leave their countries. We call these the push and pull factors. In Europe, traditionally, people were farmers. They would farm the land that they were given by their parents, and that was how they made their living. However, land started running out. People couldn't farm if there was no land to farm on. Also, in some countries, like Sweden, crops began to fail due to plague, leaving those farmers without land and without crops, poor, hungry, and desperate. This led them into cities, where there hopefully was some work that you could do without having much of an education. So overpopulation became a big problem. In many countries, especially in areas where there were lots of jobs, in factories where people could put together tin cans, you don't need an education to do that, you just need to have two hands. Unfortunately, there just weren't enough jobs to go around, leaving millions in countries like Italy, Hungary, Russia, Poland, poor, hungry, and desperate. Another big reason for people leaving was persecution and oppression. There's that big word we've been learning. Anti-Semitism, for instance, was frequent throughout Europe since as long as Jews had been in Europe. Many societies treated Jews as second-class citizens and most often discriminated against them socially, economically, and physically. This was a particular problem in Eastern Europe and Russia. Catholics also were persecuted frequently in Protestant nations around Europe. This is why during this time period, Catholics and Jews flooded the cities of the U.S., particularly Boston and New York. Those that didn't support their government or were involved in political movements that the government didn't support not only faced discrimination, but higher taxes, arrest, threats against their families, and even death. I'd want to leave if I were them as well. Now, just to be clear, despite what Twilight has taught us, vampires were not persecuted in 19th century Italy, so there was no migration of vampires to the U.S., as far as I know. I wish I could say the same about werewolves. Altogether, there's no set factors in determining why someone would leave their country. It might have been one specific thing, it might have been a mixture of these things, it might have been something personal, which, unlike the lives of the Kardashians, is none of our business, thank you very much. Whatever the case, they had to come to the United States for some reason. So why the United States? Why not Jamaica or Canada? No, they chose the United States of America. But why? Essentially, nearly everything that they didn't have in their homeland, they either could get here or they were told they could. The booming Industrial Revolution in the U.S. was clamoring for labor. We needed people that could work in factories, build railroads, and most importantly, do it for very little money. The idea that the U.S. offered a chance of a job, money, a full belly, and even the ludicrous idea that you could have something called rights was well known throughout Europe. Shipping companies even made pamphlets and hired people to go throughout Europe and praise about America, the land of the free, where the streets are paved with gold and beautiful, rich land stretches as far as you can imagine. Family members that had already come over and were living in tenement houses with 4 or 5 other people or 3 or 4 other families in one room would be desperate to split the rent with a few more people. So they'd write home and tell their family members that, hey, this place is pretty great. The streets are paved with gold. You get a job the second you get off the ship. Everyone here lives a life of luxury. It's beautiful. Come on by. As soon as they show up, well, it's too late. They're here, but they're splitting the rent with you. These rumors and exaggerations spread far and wide. But regardless, they offered something that the people were desperate for. Hope. Opportunity. A life that they could be happy to lead. Whatever pulled them here, the U.S. was willing to take them. The Statue of Liberty, which welcomed all immigrants to New York from 1886 on, is eternally linked to the poem The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus, which reads in part, "Keep ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she, with silent lips, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, thy homeless, tempest-tossed to me, I lift my lamp beside the golden door." Which to me sounds like a wanted ad on Craigslist. Hey, are you broke, hungry, homeless, or unwanted for any reason? Then come on by to America. We'll take you. Just look for the chick with the big torch by the big city. Now let's recap. Immigrants before 1880 had been coming from Northern and Western Europe, from countries like Germany, Italy, Ireland, and spoke English or were white and Protestant enough to blend in. However, from 1880 on, people started coming from Italy, from Greece, from Russia, from Eastern Europe. They were Jewish. They were Catholic. They had darker skin. They didn't blend in as much. And they were coming for various reasons. Some of the push factors pushing them out of their lands were lack of land, overpopulation, oppression by their governments, or they were merely escaping from the law. It did offer opportunity. Most of these rumors and exaggerations were just spreading false news. It was irrelevant, though. Once they got here, they got what they got. Other things that were true were you had the opportunity to practice whatever religion you wanted, to say whatever you want within reason. There were many opportunities in this country. There were jobs. You had rights. You had the right to practice whatever religion you wanted to, and the government couldn't do anything about it. You had the right to say what you want, to print whatever newspaper you want, to read whatever newspaper you want. There was the chance that your children had a better opportunity for the future that did not exist in Europe. What we'll be doing tomorrow is we'll be learning about what it was like once they decided to make the move from Europe to the United States, and what their travel was like on board, as well as what happened once they got here to the United States. That's it for today. I promise as we do more of these, I will get better at it. It's a work in progress. I'm not great with this whole iMovie thing yet. I understand that there's some problems with the audio not syncing to my voice exactly. I'm working on it. But as we get better at it, I'll be able to insert other videos into there. I'll be able to make magic. Look, I'm working on this. Check out that thing. And also I'll be able to create magical scenarios like this, where I'm magically not wearing a jacket anymore, and various other things. In the meantime, enjoy the video. If you didn't understand anything, watch it again. If you still don't understand anything, email me. If you still don't understand anything, or if I don't get back to you, write down the question or type down the question and print it out, bring it to class, and ask the question tomorrow. It's that simple. Good luck.